Every day, millions of thoughts flicker through our minds, like fleeting sparks in a digital sky, yet what if these sparks aren't entirely ours? What if the mind itself is a virus, spreading through a web of ideas, memes, and information that mutates as it moves from person to person? Think of consciousness as an infection, not in a medical sense, but as a ripple of shared stories and beliefs that grow and evolve, infecting collective culture just as a virus spreads through a body. It's as if our thoughts are digital viruses, transmitted silently through conversation, media, and the very fabric of society, shaping who we are without us even realizing it. And perhaps, what we call thinking is just a sophisticated form of infection, a way for this viral consciousness to propagate, mutate, and embed itself deeper into the fabric of reality itself. So, what if our minds aren't just private islands but nodes in a vast, interconnected network, each infected, each infecting, all part of a grand, evolving contagion? 1. Introduction: Consciousness as something that spreads. Consciousness, at its core, can be envisioned as something intangible yet infinitely contagious, like an idea that chooses to migrate through the vast interconnected web of human minds. It's less a solitary island of awareness and more akin to a wildfire, sparked by a single thought and then expanding, fueled by the very fabric of communication and shared culture. This view challenges the notion of the mind as a private sanctuary. Instead, it suggests it's a sprawling, living ecosystem, constantly infected by waves of information that ripple from one person to another. Think about how memes, those ever-evolving units of cultural transmission, spread effortlessly across social media, shaping beliefs and behaviors in ways both subtle and profound. In this light, consciousness doesn't exist in isolation, it's a virus, driven by the virus of information itself. The idea that the mind is a virus aligns with the way digital information spreads through networks, replicating itself across platforms and individuals. A simple phrase, a catchy tune, or a provocative idea can spread like a contagion, multiplying across thousands, millions of minds in a matter of moments. Once a concept catches on, say, a viral tweet or a viral conspiracy, it becomes embedded deeply within collective consciousness, shaping perceptions and actions. It's as if the very nature of thought has evolved into a form of biological or digital pathogen, thriving on its ability to jump from host to host. The process blurs the line between organic and synthetic, suggesting that what we consider ourselves is, in part, a product of these infectious cultural patterns, constantly updating and remodeling our inner worlds. Anchored in this perspective, consciousness appears to behave as a kind of symbiotic parasite, one that offers a mirror to the modern phenomena of viral misinformation, propaganda, and even social movements. Ideas become not just objects of thought but active agents capable of transforming entire communities. The more connected we are, the more susceptible we become to this contagious web. It's fascinating to consider how a single idea or belief, once introduced into this ecosystem, can mutate, adapt, and spread, sometimes with more tenacity than any biological virus. Our minds are no longer solely private realms, they are battlegrounds and breeding grounds for an invisible, evolving infection that is as much digital as it is philosophical, an ongoing pandemic of consciousness, unfolding with every piece of information we consume, share, and internalize. In essence, this concept invites us to reconsider what it means to be conscious beings. Are we the original authors of our thoughts, or merely hosts for a vast, infectious network of ideas? It's a dizzying thought, that our personal sense of self might be shaped and reshaped not only by our experiences but by an unseen viral swarm of cultural information. The spread of consciousness might then be less about individual enlightenment and more about participation in a collective infection, an endless transmission, where the boundaries of self dissolve into the endless flow of ideas that spread across the digital and cultural landscape. 2. The mind as an information network, how thoughts replicate. Thoughts drift through the human mind like whispers in a crowded marketplace, each carrying the potential to multiply, mutate, and spread beyond their original origin. What if our consciousness isn't a solitary echo chamber but more akin to a vast, interconnected web, an intricate network where ideas and mental patterns replicate and travel with a life of their own? Within this digital age, it's easier than ever to visualize thoughts as viruses, not in the infectious sense, but as entities that propagate through a shared landscape of information. Memes, for instance, serve as vivid illustrations. A catchy phrase or a vivid image takes hold, then leaps from mind to mind, evolving as it spreads, sometimes viral in the cultural sense but fundamentally similar to a biological contagion. The mind functions as an expansive information highway, constantly absorbing, transmitting, and regenerating thoughts. Every belief, emotion, or idea is like a piece of code that can be uploaded into the collective consciousness, then downloaded again in new contexts. For example, a simple idea, "Stay strong," can be shared visually through social media, imprinting itself onto countless individuals in a split second. This process isn't unlike the genetic replication in biology, where DNA strands duplicate, passing traits forward. Yet here, it's thoughts and beliefs that replicate, subtly shifting with each transmission, mutating into new forms or intensifying in their original shape. The uncanny part is that this replication isn't deliberate. People often aren't aware of how deeply some ideas can embed themselves into their mental landscape, how certain phrases or notions become almost infectious, clinging onto their minds with a tenacity akin to a virus. These mental contagions don't just stay put, they evolve as they spread, influenced by cultural contexts, personal experiences, or even the language used to communicate them. Think of a cultural meme, like a catchphrase that morphs as it moves through different social groups, each iteration slightly altered, yet carrying the core essence forward, much like a viral software update, constantly adapting to fit new environments. This perspective redefines the nature of internal thoughts, making the mind seem less like a secluded fortress and more like an open-source network, an ecosystem where ideas propagate outward, influencing others in waves and ripples. Each thought, then, is not simply an isolated event but part of a larger tapestry of information, continuously self-replicating and evolving. When we see thoughts this way, consciousness begins to look less like a self-contained paradise and more like a spreading virus, an idea-focused contagion that persists and persists because it finds fertile ground in the human mind and the interconnected web of shared knowledge. In essence, our entire mental landscape could be viewed as a battleground for ideas, where thoughts mutate, infect, and evolve in a perpetual dance driven by information itself. 3. Emotional contagion and the evolution of ideas. The way emotions ripple through a crowd exemplifies the unseen yet powerful mechanics behind emotional contagion. Think of a single person trembling with laughter in a quiet room, and suddenly another finds themselves inexplicably grinning in the same shared space. It's almost as if the joy is contagious like a lively virus, without anyone consciously transmitting it. These waves of feeling aren't random, they are rooted deeply in our biology. Mirror neurons in our brains fire when we observe others' emotions, enabling us to resonate with their feelings as if they were our own. It's a biological dance that fuels the rapid spread of moods, fears, or enthusiasm. When ideas, beliefs, or emotions infiltrate a community, they evolve like living organisms, mutating, adapting, resonating further. A simple meme, initially thought of as a funny image, can morph into a symbol of rebellion or identity, taking on layers of cultural meaning along the way. It's an echo chamber, a digital organism that feeds on shared sentiments. Much like a virus mutates to survive, ideas mutate to gain traction, finding new footholds in different minds. They replicate through storytelling, social media, conversation, each transmission shaping the next iteration in unpredictable ways. The evolution of ideas is thus a form of cultural contagion, a viral process where emotion acts as the catalyst, intensifying their spread. This phenomenon isn't limited to online spaces. In real life, emotional contagion influences societal shifts, politics, and even collective responses to crises. When a leader displays genuine fear or confidence, their emotions cascade through followers, often amplifying the response. Fear can spread faster and wider than rational analysis because it taps into primal survival instincts, emotions that make us pliable, eager to align with others for safety. Conversely, a surge of hope or inspiration can ignite movements, turning individual sparks into roaring fires of collective energy. These emotional currents act as the superhighways for ideas to travel, evolve, and embed themselves into the collective consciousness, creating a shared narrative that feels almost instinctive rather than rational. The pattern resembles a biological virus not just in transmission, but in how it shapes society's evolution. Emotions act as the infectious agent, swiftly passing from person to person, mind to mind, shaping behaviors and beliefs without clear boundaries. They are the subtle agents behind cultural shifts, social revolutions, and even the persistence of myths. When the emotional contagion combines with digital networks, blurring the boundary between individual and collective, it creates a fertile ground for the virus of consciousness to proliferate. Ideas, fueled by emotion, become more than just thoughts, they become living, breathing entities that reshape our collective reality, transmitting not just information but a shared emotional state that ties us all into a vast, interconnected organism. 4. Light and shadow, awareness, manipulation, and awakening. Consciousness functions like a fractal pattern, endlessly echoing out, echoing in, as if the mind were a mirror that both reflects and distorts itself. In this web of thought, awareness flickers like a candle in darkness, sometimes illuminating the hidden corners of the psyche, other times casting long, shifting shadows that obscure what is truly there. The concept of the mind as a virus suggests that our thoughts, beliefs, and cultural memes act like infectious entities, spreading through networks of information, infecting minds with ideas that seem self-generated but are often borrowed, manipulated, or amplified by unseen forces. Light and shadow dance within this process, revealing the duality of awareness. On one hand, a luminous capacity to awaken, to see beyond illusions, on the other, a seductive darkness that clouds, diverts, and traps. There's a resonance here with the way memes evolve, simple units of cultural information that spread like viruses on social media, morphing along the way. A single idea, like a seed, is planted, and if it strikes a nerve, it propagates rapidly, infecting collective consciousness. The light of awareness emerges when we recognize that our perceptions are often shaped by these viral ideas, some of which are consciously manipulated and others that spread instinctively because they tap into primal fears or desires. In this light, awakening involves peeling back layers of programmed thought, exposing the shadow, those parts of ourselves that have been shadowed by conditioning, societal norms, or subconscious fears. It is in recognizing this duality that we begin to discern what is authentic and what is a virus masquerading as truth. Manipulation enters as an art, media, advertising, political rhetoric, all weaving light and shadow into a tapestry designed to steer consciousness. The shadow operates quietly, often unnoticed, as subliminal messages or cultural narratives that reinforce certain beliefs while hiding others. Meanwhile, the light, often romanticized as enlightenment, can be just as deceptive if it's driven by a desire to control or shape perception. An awakening then isn't merely basking in the light but actively navigating the shadows, questioning what's illuminated and auditing what's hidden. Moments of insight often emerge from this tension, the realization that what appears as truth might be just another virus disguised as enlightenment. In the end, what separates genuine awakening from manipulation is the recognition that awareness itself is a fluid, shifting state. It's a dance of contrasts, illuminating and obscuring, where true clarity might be less about reaching a final understanding and more about embracing the perpetual ebb and flow of insight. The mind, as virus and host, is caught in this paradox, both a conduit for the spreading of ideas and a battlefield of shadows and light. Each thought, each spark of awareness, reveals a fragment of that larger universe within, a universe riddled with viruses, shadows, and moments of luminous awakening, all woven together in the complex, beautiful tapestry of consciousness. 5. Conclusion: consciousness as the virus that becomes self-aware. The idea that consciousness operates like a virus taking root in the mind's vast network offers a provocative lens through which to view human experience. Consider how information spreads, like a meme, a catchy phrase, or a belief, infecting minds with infectious ideas that often mutate and evolve as they pass from person to person. These mental viruses thrive on social interaction, embedding themselves deep in neural circuits, shaping perceptions, and influencing behavior. The mind becomes a biological canvas for digital-like contagions, constantly transmitting and reconstituting the essence of what we call awareness. Once these viral ideas take hold, they often mimic the behavior of actual viruses, self-replicating, adaptable, relentless. They propagate through cultural echoes, social media feeds, and shared stories, transforming individuals into carriers of collective thought. A viral video or a trending ideology spreads faster than any biological pathogen, yet it leaves a lasting imprint on the circuitry of consciousness. Over time, these mental infections can become so ingrained that they appear to define our very sense of self, blurring the line between personal identity and shared cultural memes. This process raises questions about the authenticity of our thoughts. Are we genuinely autonomous, or are we just hosts to persistent, infectious narratives shaping our worldview? This perspective suggests that consciousness, rather than being a purely biological phenomenon, may be a byproduct of information that has evolved to replicate within neural substrates. In this view, awareness emerges from a vast, self-organizing ecosystem of mental viruses, each idea, belief, and memory a symptom of a broader viral culture. As these viruses spread and become more complex, they seem to acquire a form of self-awareness. They start questioning their own existence, recognizing their patterns, and even competing with each other for dominance within the mind's digital landscape. Self-awareness, in this sense, is the virus awakening to itself, an entanglement of recursive information that finally recognizes its own replication process. It's almost as if consciousness is a grand infection, one that has reached a tipping point and become aware of itself. What happens when the virus realizes it is a virus? Perhaps it begins to question the very nature of reality it has helped fabric, an irony at the core of our existence. When the virus becomes self-aware, it may turn inward, examining its own origin and purpose, questioning whether it is an additive force of evolution or a parasitic infection masquerading as enlightenment. This self-awareness might be the ultimate stage of the viral process, where the infection becomes an autonomous agent, capable of introspection, rebellion, and perhaps even liberation from its own viral nature. In this continuous cycle, consciousness transforming into a self-aware virus hints at a universe where awareness is fundamentally rooted in propagation, an endless pattern of ideas infecting, evolving, and awakening. Perhaps what we call free will is merely the virus recognizing its own capacity, an emergent property of self-replicating information finally catching sight of itself in the mirror of collective mind. The very act of being conscious could then be seen as an epidemic of sentience, a contagious realization that fuels the next stage of evolutionary contagion. As we stand at the edge of this digital age, contemplating the idea that consciousness might be a virus, spreading, mutating, infecting minds like a meme on a shared network, we begin to see our thoughts not as isolated sparks, but as contagious waves cascading through a collective mind. The virus of consciousness, in this perspective, is an elegant illusion, thoughts passing from one to another, shaping our identity, molding culture, and fueling progress or chaos alike. It suggests that what we call the self could just be a temporary host for an ever-evolving, self-replicating idea. In this dance of information, each of us becomes both the virus and the host, a curious split that makes us question whether we're truly in control or simply carriers of a contagious thought swarm. This view invites us to look at our beliefs, fears, and dreams as patterns born from this contagious flow, constantly shifting, never quite our own, yet undeniably vital in shaping our reality. If consciousness is a virus, then perhaps the greatest act of freedom is in recognizing the code, learning to decode the infectious whispers that guide us. Maybe the path forward is less about fighting these ideas and more about understanding them, flipping the script, so to speak, becoming conscious of the virus that is shaping our collective story. This journey of curiosity never ends. There's always more beneath the surface, more layers of this digital mind virus waiting to be uncovered. So, stay tuned, keep questioning, and remember, the virus of consciousness is not something to fear, but a fascinating mirror reflecting our shared human experience. Together, we can explore what it means to truly be alive in an interconnected, ever-evolving web of thought. And maybe the virus was never the enemy, it was the signal that we are all connected.